Some moments don't pass. They linger. They stretch time, stretch your mind, until you're questioning not just where you are, but who you are, and why you've been chosen to carry a weight you never asked for. Dr. Malcolm Hayes sat frozen, not in fear, but in clarity. The kind of clarity that only comes when everything you believe is stripped away. The officer had just told him, "You're on a list." And that one sentence cracked open a door that Dr. Hayes never knew existed. A door he couldn't close, even if he tried. The scene shifts to a surreal sequence of Hayes' past, his childhood in the inner city, his scholarship, medical school, the death of his brother, all flashing in montage, with layered sounds of a heartbeat and faint police radio chatter in the background. He had made it out, but he hadn't left. Not really. He still funded after-school programs. He still volunteered at clinics back in the neighborhood. Still showed up at funerals that too many others ignored. Dr. Hayes stayed tethered to the struggle, not because he couldn't leave, but because he wouldn't. He believed his success wasn't something to run with. It was something to give back, to preserve, to protect. But the system? It had other plans. Cut to the officer again, now pacing nervously near his squad car, whispering into his shoulder MIC. The list wasn't public. It wasn't official. But it was real. A quiet network. An algorithm. A threat detection system used in a handful of precincts. One that flagged certain individuals not based on crimes, but on influence. Black men who made it out and came back. Men with reach. Men with respect outside the system. They were anomalies. And in a system built on control, anomalies are dangerous. Dr. Hayes was flagged because he never truly left. Because his presence blurred the lines between what they controlled and what they feared. Because while the system thrives on cycles, poverty, crime, abandonment, he was breaking them. Quietly, but effectively. Flashback to Dr. Hayes in a classroom, speaking to young boys in a worn-down school, telling them about heart surgery, about possibility, about purpose. They say when you lift a community, you weaken the system that feeds on its despair. That's what Malcolm was doing. Not loudly, not politically, just humanely. But sometimes, humane is the most radical thing you can be. Dr. Hayes, measured. I want to know what this is. Why I'm on that list. I have a right to know. The officer shakes his head, eyes darting. You weren't supposed to find out. I wasn't supposed to tell you anything. If they know I said something. His voice trails off. There are truths so volatile, even those inside the system are scared to touch them. And that fear, it's not about danger. It's about exposure. Because if people like Dr. Hayes are watched, then who else is? And if you're punished not for what you've done, but for who you inspire, then what kind of justice is that? An unmarked black SUV slowly pulls up across the street. Two men in plain clothes step out, wearing badges on their belts but not speaking. The officer stiffens. That's when Dr. Hayes knew. This wasn't about a traffic stop anymore. This was containment. This was about quieting a man who had become a mirror, reflecting a truth the system didn't want seen. The plainclothes men approached. Calm, professional, smiling, but not kindly. Dr. Hayes, one of them said, "We'd like to ask you a few questions. Just a routine follow-up. You can ride with us, or we can do it here." Malcolm looked at them, then at the officer who'd pulled him over, the same man who had slipped, who had revealed too much. And he realized something else. This wasn't new. It was just his turn. Our slow zoom on Dr. Hayes' face, composed but alert. When you grow up where Malcolm did, you learn to read a room. You learn to feel a setup before it hits. And something about this, about how quiet it all was, told him this wasn't just about observation. This was about erasure. Dr. Hayes said, "I'll follow you, but I'm calling my attorney and recording everything." The agent's smile flickered for half a second, just enough to confirm what Malcolm already knew. The truth wasn't meant to be uncovered. The system wasn't glitching. It was functioning exactly as designed. Dr. Hayes begins to drive behind the SUV. The screen fades to black. So what do you do when you've spent your life-saving lives, only to realize someone, somewhere, decided you were a threat that needed removing? You don't run. You remember why you stayed. Because even when you're mocked, even when the system turns, There's still something sacred worth holding on to. There's a silence that doesn't just fill a room. It wraps around your chest, tightens, slows your breath. That was a silence inside Dr. Malcolm Hayes' car as he followed that black SUV into the unknown. And maybe the worst part? It wasn't the fear. It was the certainty. He knew, deep down, that life as he knew it was over. Cut to the SUV pulling into an industrial lot surrounded by chain-link fences. No police cars. No official signs. Just concrete, cameras, and a building with no windows. This wasn't a police station. It wasn't a precinct. It was something else. Somewhere off record. The man who greeted him didn't wear a badge. Just a suit, a buzz cut, and a voice too calm to be safe. "Dr. Hayes," he said, "you've been identified as someone of interest to the program." That word, program, sat wrong in his stomach. It didn't sound legal. It sounded designed. They escorted him inside. No handcuffs. No force. Just guided obedience. Like they knew he wouldn't run. Because people like Dr. Hayes don't run. They calculate. They endure. They survive. I seen shifts to a room with one table. One camera. No clock. The question started soft. Casual. Do you mentor youth? Have you ever spoken against law enforcement? Do you plan to run for public office? Then they changed tone. Have you noticed if you're being followed? Do you speak to people who are under investigation? Have you ever leaked information? That's when it hit him. This wasn't an interrogation. This was a filtering system. The program wasn't built to protect the public. It was built to protect power, to track black men of influence, men who were changing their communities outside the accepted structures. Not criminals, not radicals, just effective. Outcut to a bulletin board with redacted files. Hayes sees faces he recognizes, activists, pastors, a local journalist who vanished last year. The list, it wasn't just his name. It was a network. Men flagged not for what they did, but for who they were becoming. Mentors, leaders, disruptors of despair. And one by one, they were being neutralized. Silently, legally, permanently. Some lost funding. Some were hit with tax audits. Some had accidents. And some just disappeared. You have a choice, Dr. Hayes. Cooperate, and we help you stay protected, successful. You keep your practice, your grants, your safety. Oh, go back to your community, and eventually you'll be handled like the rest. It was a threat wrapped in opportunity, a deal soaked in betrayal. And in that moment, Malcolm realized something chilling. This wasn't about removing him. It was about converting him, turning his influence into control. Because sometimes the system doesn't kill its threats. It absorbs them. Flashback, Hayes as a child, watching his older brother get harassed by police. Flash forward to med school, being told he was one of the good ones. Another flash, burying his brother after shooting no one investigated. His life had always walked the line between two worlds, the clean and the cracked, the sterile surgery room and the sirens at night. He thought he could balance both. But now they were asking him to choose. And not just for himself. For every young boy watching him. For every mother who said, "See, look what you could become." For every life he touched by staying present. I'm not the one who needs protecting. I'm the one protecting others. And I won't stop now. Then we'll be in touch. Let's hope your decisions don't cost you too much. Hayes is escorted out. The sun is rising now, but the air is colder. They let him go, not because he won, but because they wanted him to know they were watching. They wanted the fear to travel home with him, into his phone, his practice, his neighborhood, because fear, when planted deep enough, doesn't need surveillance. It grows on its own. Cut to Hayes standing outside the clinic he helped build. A neighborhood kid waves. He smiles back, but his eyes, they're different now. He came back, not because he had to, but because some places, some people, are sacred, even when they are mocked, even when they are hunted, even when the world tells you it's smarter to leave. Some men stay, not because they are stuck, but because they're the roots. And no matter how hard the wind blows, roots don't run. And next time, Dr. Hayes won't be alone. If anything happens to me, this recording proves everything. The program, the list, the surveillance. They want silence, but I won't give it to them. They didn't disappear him. They didn't detain him. They did something worse. They let him live, with a warning, because fear isn't just enforced with violence. It's enforced with watching eyes. And yet, Dr. Hayes did not disappear into safety. He doubled down. We talk about systems like they're invisible, like they are too big to name. But the truth is, they have names, files, folders, directives, and they are scared of us knowing. What they didn't expect was that Hayes had been documenting everything. Phone calls, meetings, the secret visit to the black site, the threats dressed as offers, the names on the list. He turned the very tools they used to track him into evidence. And he wasn't alone anymore. Seen flashes, a former FBI analyst, a city councilwoman, a tech activist, people in shadows now stepping into the light. One by one, others came forward. Some had been flagged, some had been silenced, but all of them had stories. And they were done being quiet. They called it the reckoning. Not a riot, not revenge, but revelation. A collective unveiling of everything the program tried to keep buried. They thought by scaring Malcolm they could stop the message, but they forgot something. When you come for a man who's already buried his brother, who's already fought back from nothing, who's seen both the system and the street claim lives, you don't scare him. You free him. Mal, if you ever make it out, don't forget, we're not just meant to survive. We're meant to return. Cut back to present. Malcolm standing at a press conference. A reporter asks, "Are you afraid of retaliation?" He pauses. Dr. Hayes, "No, because now they know I'm not alone. And if they try to silence me, 100 more voices will rise." But power never folds that easily. 2 weeks after Malcolm's revelations, a break-in at his clinic. Nothing stolen, just files moved, papers shredded, a warning. Then a strange call from an unknown number. "Stay in your lane, doctor, before someone crashes." And finally, an envelope. No return address. Just one page. One new name. A child, 13 years old. Gifted. From Malcolm's mentorship program. Now flagged by the program. They weren't just tracking men in the mall. They were watching the next ones. Cut to Malcolm staring at the envelope. His hands shake, not from fear, but from fury. He picks up the phone. "Dr. Hayes, call the others. It's time." Music swells, slow, cinematic. Scenes flash in rhythm. Meetings in basements, encrypted chats, black activists, Latino organizers, white whistleblowers, teachers, nurses, a movement forming. The program wanted silence. What it got was resistance. Not chaos, but coordination. Not fear, but focus. Because power doesn't just come from money or guns. Real power is when people decide that enough is enough. When the roots that were never meant to grow crack concrete. A final scene. Dr. Hayes walking into a packed auditorium. Cameras, reporters, lawmakers. He holds a binder. The list is inside. Narrator, final words, sharp and clear. And in that binder is proof. Names, patterns, blueprints. But the most dangerous thing in that binder? Hope. Because once the truth is visible, it can't be unseen. And now, the system is afraid. Screen fades to black. White text appears, inspired by truth, built on too many real stories. The list is fictional, but the fear is not.